Hello Summoner Duels fans, it's Jay Will, here with the first installment of the Summoner Duels Guide series. Today's topic is openers, why they matter, the theory behind them, and most importantly, how to make one. Openers are a set of established moves designed to get you from your starting position into a position that allows you to strategize and play effectively throughout the rest of the game, and serve an important role in a Summoner Duels match. Having a fancy, pre-planned way to start the match seems cool, but why is it important? For starters, despite the fact that Summoner Duels allows matches to go on for 5 turns, most matches are decided on turns 1 and 2. That can be seen in this replay. Red is running a Cav line, which is an aggressive archetype that wants to control space. Now, aside from the fact that their Merrick has the same kill power as a 5-year-old, their opener doesn't reflect that aggressiveness. Red's first action, breaking the block with Dagger, while a potential good starting point, would never be taken advantage of in a meaningful way. Their second action, while setting up Merrick to have some form of threat range, doesn't cover enough space without Dual Dagger's button. Their third action not only ends the turn of one of their major nukes, but also lowers the effective threat range of Red's team for this turn, allowing for Blue to set up safely and easily. Their fourth action places Merrick in a spot that will result in him getting freezed by Satyr, and his last action places Lind away from the capture zone. Red's poor initial actions and lack of assist variety, which is a topic we will cover later, allowed Blue to pressure their side of the field with ease. Bad openers can also be all it takes to lose an otherwise good matchup. Here, Blue has very little options to deal with Altina, as no unit here is capable of one-rounding her. However, Red's opener does not capitalize on that, and instead puts their supports at risk of being sniped, while at the same time leaving their nukes behind. This allows Blue to snipe 2 kills for an early lead, which Red cannot recover from. Ultimately, the bad opener, lack of pressure from Red's nukes, and other mistakes led to Blue winning a normally bad matchup in only 2 turns. The common thread between these examples is the importance of openers. So, what should an opener accomplish? Any opener should consist of a healthy mix of offense and defense. Take for instance this SDS replay. Blue starts off by positioning Katria in the far save in order to set up future plays via usage of reposition and Kanto. Then they use to change fate with Chrom, allowing them to threaten all but 3 squares, otherwise known as the 3 diagonal. The 3 diagonal is visualized in this picture and is an important concept on most maps. Threatening this area early allows you to control the aggression of the game, denying the opponent space to set up and establishing your own pressure. Afterwards, Blue uses Return Plus on Nagi, allowing her to cover her allies if they decide to push forward, covering the team with Kanto control and Miracle support, and even enabling triangle attack for the nukes. After only 3 actions, Blue threatens the 3 diagonal with triangle attack Hinoka and legendary Chrom, preventing basically all foes from entering that area and giving Blue a good chance at getting turn 1 zone points. Red, on the other hand, did cover themselves with a far save, but threatened nearly no space with their nukes. Openers must also include your team's form of defense, whether that's in the form of Kanto control, a savior, a revenge killer, threatening space early, or ideally, all 4. In this replay, Red's opener starts off similar to how Blue's did in the previous example. However, due to Blue's positioning, when Camilla managed to take down their far save, they couldn't immediately revenge kill. Furthermore, due to their Kanto control unit, legendary Chrom, being too far away, it results in Camilla canceling to safety. This will result in a win for Blue, as they can safely trade for the win. Some teams don't apply to these rules and lean heavily towards either offense or defense. Common examples are Cav lines, who use their high mobility and threat range instead of defense, and raid bosses, whose whole game plan revolves around overextending and relying on their main carry to checkmate the opponent with bulk. Additionally, you need to make sure that at the end of turn 1, at least 4 of your units are inside the capture zone. 5 is ideal, and 3 can work if your pressure on the 3 diagonal is good, but 4 is the necessary amount in order to prevent your opponent from gaining 2 free capture points. Of course, assuming your opponent knows what they are doing, or watched this video, they will pressure the 3 diagonal themselves. So, if you want 4 units in the zone, they should be protected by a far save and or cancel control. While having a strong turn 1 is important, Remember that there's still 4 more turns of gameplay to go through, and your opener should account for that. Naturally, your turn 2 start position should achieve the same offensive and defensive mix mentioned earlier, but it should also set up start of turn effects for everyone, many of which have a 2-space condition. Also, avoid leaving units behind, as many can't properly contribute to the match from far away. Your nukes want to be close in order to trade, saviors want to be close to protect their allies. The only exception to this are against raid bosses, since many of their supports have global range and shouldn't ever have to enter combat. One more note, openers should be flexible to some degree. You cannot predict what your opener will do, so you should adjust to their opener if necessary. A flexible opener could, for example, have an aggressive version which threatens space early at the cost of safety, and a defensive version which prioritizes save and cancel control coverage at the cost of temporary passivity. This is very complex in practice, but worth it if mastered. While not part of the opener itself, having an offensive game plan for after the opener already in mind is very useful. For instance, in this game, Blue's primary threat is AoE Seliph. Seliph pressures the entire enemy team except for Ana. By using Seliph's swap right before the end of turn 1, Blue sets up a scenario where Red either has to sacrifice a unit, which they end up doing, or retreat outside the capture area. But offensive game plans are a topic for another day. The opener creation process starts on the team building screen. Generally speaking, you want to rely on assist skills in the opening. Skills like reposition and drawback work well on any sort of team, allowing units to be moved without using their own action. Swap works well on teams that bunch up together, as they benefit from its micro movement. Smite is very niche, only really being used on raid boss teams. And Shove is even rarer, as it is just a worse swap in most situations. Rally should not be used unless it grants the rallier an extra action, and you should avoid pivot like the plague. Finding other ways to position saviors that aren't pivot is highly recommended. While assist skills are important, other forms of mobility are of equal importance. Things like guidance, the orders buff, charge, pathfinder, and +1 movement are needed on most teams. They not only extend a team's threat range, but make the opener easier to make and more effective to use. Furthermore, a unit that has some form of extra action is recommended, as they grant action economy on turn 1 and make it easier to not leave someone behind. A prime example of this are the range Chroms.
Alright.
They can act again after using their assist skill, in addition to being serviceable nukes themselves and having access to cancel control, helping with several of the defensive and offensive aspects of an opener. Finally, some form of Canto is often helpful, especially on guidance beacons or pathfinder units, as they can move further after using an assist skill, increasing your range quickly. So now that we have a team, it's time to assemble a working opener. However, before we continue, make sure to hit that subscribe button and comment down below what other topics you want to see in this series. I also want to thank fellow Summoner Duels YouTuber Patrick and the authors of the Summoner Duels guide document, by which this series is inspired, especially Mysticat, for helping with the production of this series. Links to both can be found in the description. They do amazing work, so be sure to check them out. The map we'll be using for this example is Desert Barrier, which is generally considered a slow map. Slow maps are maps where instant hyper-aggression isn't feasible due to the map's layout. Here, trees in the center, breakable and unbreakable blocks near the flanks, trenches on the side, and starting positions that are further back than normal means openers do not have to be as aggressive compared to a different, more open map. As a result, openers focus on positioning for turn 2 rather than playing offense early by threatening the 3 diagonal. That being said, keeping both offense and defense in mind is still important. The team I'll be using is a pretty standard guidance team, built around strong specials enabled by Dual Asker. Every team needs to meet certain conditions in order to operate. For this team, we need to have Dual Asker within range of the entire team for their dual button, have Legendary Shada placed in a spot that allows allies to make use of Soren guidance, threaten space with our main nuke Camilla, and have Soren within 2 spaces of Dual Asker for turn 2. While turn 1 offense isn't as important, it's still nice to have a bit of threat range in addition to the forms of defense mentioned earlier. Finding the optimal starting positions takes a lot of trial and error, so experiment with them while creating openers. Our 2 requirements here are everyone being within 2 spaces of Asker to benefit from open domain, and Soren being within 2 spaces of Shida and Asker. I've settled on these starting positions for the opener, which I can replicate on the team setup screen with this order. Setting your wanted starting positions on the team screen saves you from having to swap around a lot of units, which can easily lead to mistakes. We start the opener by either using Duel Asker's button if you want to play a slower game, or using to change fate on Camilla, reducing the cooldown for her special, in this case Blazing Wind, by 1. Then we reposition Duel Asker with Sheeta, and use the Cancel 2 effect in her weapon in combination with the Eminence Captain skill to move 2 spaces above Camilla. This covers the 3 diagonal with our main Duke, covers Sheeta with a far save, and leaves options for us to move Crom in for better cancel control coverage should it be needed. Next, we break the block above Duel Asker with Sorin. This gets Sorin closer to the team and sets up our 4th move of the opener, which is repositioning Sorin with Duel Asker. Drawback also works, however, I elected to use reposition as it keeps everyone within range for an end of turn Duel Asker button. Finally, I move Crom in, optionally breaking the block above Sheeta, and our opener is essentially complete, with an additional action to use Duel Asker's button or move in the zone with Camilla. While my opener is, in theory, complete, additional testing in favorite battles is ideal, as it serves as a way to accurately test how safe and effective your opener is. Even with the same captain skills and team, a map's composition can drastically change a team's opener. For instance, Yawning Gulf is an example of an open map, with the lack of breakable blocks and inaccessible terrain allowing for much more aggression on turn 1. Due to this, the amount of actions it takes to get set up for 3 diagonal aggression is around 3. Additionally, since the center is a choke point that both teams essentially have to pass through to get to the opponent, we want to place Sheeta there to block enemies and provide guidance support. For this opener, we'll be going over another way to make openers, which is to reverse engineer them. That means we'll start by identifying our ideal positions for turn 2, which looks something like this. This position covers everyone with a signed decoy save and cancel control, and allows all nukes to threaten most of the capture area. The starting positions again have everyone in range of Asker right away. We start by using to change fate on Camilla, allowing her to charge up an AoE build. Then we reposition Duel Asker with Sheeta and cancel up to above Camilla, immediately threatening the enemy team within 2 actions. 3 if you use Duel Asker's button on turn 1. The basics of the opener are done, and you have quite a bit of flexibility. You can ball up in a plus formation and prepare for turn 2, or swap in Sheeta with Duel Asker to extend your threat range and achieve the ideal positioning shown earlier. Either way, the opener accomplishes the major principles of offense and defense within 2 or 3 actions, which is our main priority. Opener composition heavily depends on team composition. Take for instance this legendary Alir raid boss. While the basics of offense and defense are mostly the same, it has different conditions from the previous guidance team. We need to dance Alir with Fallen Indian for the Firestorm dance buff and +1 movement, place Alir on the choke point to heavily restrict opponent movement, keep allies close to Alir to maintain her weapon effect, and have Freyr and Lilith in range for turn 2 start of turn buffs, as opposed to the sniping based aggression and balled up positioning from guidance teams. This team instead attempts to force Alir into enemy territory, and using her bulk combined with support to both wall and kill the enemy team. The opener starts by moving Alir forward 2 squares and then dancing her with Fallen Ninian before canceling up 1 square to get Ninian in the zone. From here, the opener is flexible. While the example video shows Alir smiting Alir, creating offensive pressure within 3 actions, you can also move in with Lilith beforehand to ensure that Alir has her special DR piercing before going into enemy territory. After the smite, you can choose to play aggressively as shown in the video, moving Freyr and Lilith in afterwards, or play defensively by leaving Alir on the choke point and getting the rest of your team into the zone. Openers are an important part of the game, as a bad opener will ruin even the best built teams. This video hopefully showed you what to look out for while creating openers, but at the end of the day, the art of openers is best learned via practice. While for some teams and some people, openers come naturally, others may struggle with making them. As such, don't be afraid to take inspiration from other people and blatantly steal someone's opener. Copying is quite commonplace in the SD community and always accepted. After all, if the perfect opener is right there, why wouldn't you use it? Alright, video's over. Hit the subscribe button, comment down any questions, and get out of here.